Welcome in, Minnesota high school football fans. We are here back for a part two previewing 5A. This is going to be sections 5 through 8. Excited for this one and get to touch on some fun teams and really just everybody giving people some knowledge, some acknowledgement. I'm here with Coach Lance once again. Are you ready for 5A part 2?
Yes, sir. I'm excited. We got to talk about a team that I used to coach for where I got my feet wet. So on top of that, tons of other fantastic teams like you mentioned. I'm ready to dive into it.
Here we go. Let's just kick it off right now. I'm going to add them to the stage. We got St. Louis Park. St. Louis Park, 4-6 last season, 2-8 the season before. You see their schedule up there. Give me your thoughts on St. Louis Park. I think they have a new stadium or there's new construction going on somewhere over there. I just went to one of their 7-on-7s there at the practice field, and there's some work being done at the stadium. So I don't know if it's a new stadium. I don't know if it's new turf. Not because I haven't been to St. Louis Park's like varsity field. But something's going on over there. What do you got for St. Louis Park?
Maybe they're improving the turf or something. Who knows? I'm sure a team like Moorhead wishes they had a schedule this easy for the 2025 season. I was just listening to that Randy Shaver podcast where he was interviewing Coach Feeney and Jet Feeney. He was Coach Feeney was talking about how the Spuds schedule is like the SEC for the Spuds this year, and then you compare that to St. Louis Park here, and it's like, you guys playing like Little League football? There's definitely a lot of opportunity for St. Louis Park to get wins, especially considering, and we're going to go over the other 4 teams in Section 5 here. I wouldn't say it's the best group of talented teams in 5A. So there's definitely opportunity to potentially make the state tournament. What about you, Caleb? What do you think about the Orioles?
Well, I think they're going to have a young starting quarterback this year, for my knowledge. I don't know if he's going to start this year just because this is one of the teams where I'm a little outsider looking in, trying to read. But I know Everett Arnold, I think, is a quarterback from St. Louis Park that's high on some ranking sites that from the one St. Louis Park 7-on-7 I did go to, he was throwing the ball for him. So that's a name to watch out for. My other big one that I want to there we go, is Mason Helfman, running back, linebacker. I like his linebacker tape more than his running back tape. Not to say that he's not a good running back, but his linebacker tape, he's got really disciplined eyes, which I think is hard for a linebacker, especially in high school. They go where the ball fake is. So that is to say, like, if counter plays, the offense is fake going to the right, but the guard and tackle are pulling to the left. From what I've seen, he's a really good reader of linemen, and he goes where they are. Once he reads it, he goes to it, and he can blow up a play. There's another one where he gets in the backfield and he ruins a reverse. So the thing is, like, offensive play wrecking is a big thing for this guy playing his linebacker. He likes to blow up the design that whatever the OC is trying to do to the defense, he often doesn't do what the OC wants him to do. And it leads to, as you see, 134 total tackles, 19 TFL, 6.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, kind of like ridiculous numbers for a linebacker to have. And he's doing it both ways too, on both sides of the ball. So that makes it even more impressive. Yeah, definitely a stud. You're going to be his senior season. Excited to watch him do whatever he can for an encore season after what he did last year.
Yeah, it should be pretty good. The Orioles play their classic 3-4 defense, spread 11 personnel offense. He sounds like he fits right into those systems. And he's probably pretty good at reading GH counter. Almost every team in 5A that's a spread runs GH counter. So if he's following them guards and H-backs,
Huddle has a really good video of just him. It's like a bullet. He's like a missile. As soon as he sees the guard and tackle pole, he's just like on it. It's fun to watch.
That's awesome.
All right. Southwest Lakers, we're being efficient here. Let's go Southwest 1-8. Last season 3-6. when you kind of take a look at it, 4-3, 6-4, and then 2022 hits, the record dips a bit for the next 3 seasons. Their schedule, I can only find 7 games in their schedule. Don't know if that's correct. If they're, we kind of experienced that last podcast of talking about what's going to happen with that week 8. So we won't talk about that anymore. But the schedule, I would argue that it looks not too bad for a 1-8 team to have, some opportunity. Hill Murray was a really good football team last season, but we'll touch on them. They got, actually, is Hill Murray, are they 4?
You got it. Hill Murray is 4A.
I was doing my rankings, and that's how I kind of remember. They do have a lot of people graduating from their team last season, so it'll be interesting to see that cross-class matchup. But what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think Minneapolis Roosevelt might also be a 4A team. I don't remember where they fall, but we kind of touched on, or is that week 5? Is that who they play week 5?
Yeah, yep, Roosevelt, yep.
Okay, I don't remember. I think they might be 4, maybe. No, I don't think they're 3A. I'm pretty sure they're 4A. Definitely another pretty easy schedule. We kind of talked about last week how St. Paul Highland Park and St. Paul Central play in that Twin Cities division. Same is true with the Minneapolis Southwest Lakers. They get a little bit of schedule relief so they can play other inner city teams, and it just allows them to be able to be a bit more competitive in the regular season. Because kind of like we've talked about on end, you don't want to get blown out by Chanhassen or St. Thomas Academy every week. So it just provides the kids a little bit more fun. But I mean, as far as competition goes, I think their spread offense will do just fine. My big concern with the Minneapolis Southwest is if they still run their 4-4 base defense. I'm seeing a lot of spread offenses that they're going to be facing on the schedule here. In fact, I'm pretty sure all of those teams are spread offenses, a lot of talent, a lot of passing. And I just don't see how their 4-4 defense is going to match up well against that at all. Like only 3 DBs against 4 wide receivers, a lot of 10 personnel packages. I'm sure as a quarterback yourself, you're probably you'd be licking your chops at that opportunity.
Interesting. I was taking a look at the schedule once more. Mm-hmm. I think, isn't that's North Minneapolis right there on your screen. I'm kind of hovering over there. I want to say 3 or 4 as well. So like you were talking about, this whole Twin Cities or however you explained it plays, and that's kind of where you get some of those different class matchups that aren't going to see each other in the playoffs for sure. That would have no shot, but it's kind of fun seeing different teams from different classes match up.
For sure, yeah.
Jacob Hartman, receiver DB, is one of the guys that kind of stood out on tape, and also statistically, he accounted for half the team's receiving touchdowns last season. I think it was around 9. I could be wrong there. Also is a great physical safety, usually kind of playing in that free role, but there's one where the running back breaks through and just meets an absolute brick wall. Ooh. And that's usually not what you expect from a free safety. No. But he just planted the dude. And again, a two-way player that's hard to cover. DBs obviously struggle covering this dude, and can take the top off the defense without a doubt. And that's why he's had half of their receiving touchdowns, but can also do it in the red zone. Impressive player for Southwest here.
Yeah, a good player to have, especially if he helps them cap off drives, get in the end zone, and take 7 instead of 3, or potentially a turnover on downs. You love to have a kid like that in the roster.
For sure. Minneapolis Washburn. I got to see the Millers a little bit at they did a scrimmage in Monticello, and it's hard to tell from a scrimmage exactly, but it looks like they have some good pieces there. Well, I'll tell you guys about one of them the next slide. But what are your thoughts on Minneapolis Washburn?
I don't really know, because I feel like they're maybe a team that's better than their record shows, because if you look back to previous cycles, they've kind of been up and down, and it all depends on whether they get a Twin Cities schedule or they get more of a consistent 5A schedule. And I feel like recently they've probably had more of that Twin Cities schedule. They are another one of those Twin City League teams like Minneapolis Southwest. But I feel like they still compete pretty solidly. Like, week 1 versus Jefferson, that could be a toss-up either way. I don't know that the Jaguars, I mean, they should beat a Twin Cities district team, but you never know. And, I mean, they play a really good spread offense. They got a ton of athletes. Supposedly they have a very good running game, which we'll touch on here in a minute. But they also play a pretty solid 3-4 defense as well. They're great at covering the pass. And, looking at all those teams outside of that weird Casson Manorville game week 2, a lot of spread offenses on their schedule. Well, I guess Highland Park also is run heavy, but, that's 2 out of 7.
Yeah, we see the Comets pop in these 5A previews. I think the first one was against St. Paul Central week 1, and then Minneapolis Washburn game week 2. A little weird. I haven't looked at their full schedule, but something that stuck out to me that the Comets keep popping up in our 5A ones. But I think you touched on it. Like, I think it does. This is a thing of like the Twin Cities schedule of how it's going to play out. Now, looking at their schedule right now, I think it is set up for them to have a shot at having, that 4 to 6 winish season once again. But now it's just a matter of, going to execute. They had good ones. Bad teams don't beat teams, no matter who it is, by like a lot of points. And just looking at their 2024, Harding was one of the worst teams in 5A, but they beat them 50-6 basically. St. Paul Central, they beat them by 20. Bloomington Kennedy 50-7, and then they won against Cooper in the section semifinal and lost 48-7. But I think above those teams, like I said, I think a good middle of the pack team where you're going to see where things shake out, and I think an interesting team to keep your eye on.
Definitely kind of reminds me of Two Rivers from the last 2 cycles where they go like undefeated in their regular season against all the Twin Cities teams, but then you have to play Apple Valley, who's like a lower tier regular 5A team, and you kind of get taken to the wire with them. So we'll see what happens come playoff time.
Yeah, Kevin Hayes, the running back, is the guy I wanted to highlight. Now there were a few skill players that I could have, but the stats didn't really align. Now, whether that's like MN Football Hub in the team not really like getting the stats right, or the stats just not being favorable last year. There is talent on their skill guys, but Kevin Hayes, I think it might be the 3rd on social media. I don't know if there's Roman numerals after. I didn't include it, but my number 1 point on this guy was don't Oklahoma drill this guy. If it's one-on-one, I do not want to get in the way of this guy. 5'10", 240, not your like typical high school running back. I put bully ball. You can also say like, I know bowling ball kind of has like this weird sentiment to it, but like I think he is almost like a bowling ball going down a lane with a football, just carrying a football. And like, you don't want to get in the way of this guy. You look at his film and he's just a big human to bring down. And when he gets out to the DBs, you can see the DBs want absolutely no part of him. They do like the half tackle or, they do the thing where they pretend the receiver's blocking them good just so they don't have to get in the way of the running back. I don't know if any of the young listeners are familiar with Brandon Jacobs. I'm kind of like at the very end, or I don't know, Brandon Jacobs, an older age running back that's still, like, older I don't know, what do you say?
Well, you're making me feel old because he was like in his prime back when I was in high school, like
2010s, or like
late 2000s, early 2010s.
Yeah, so some high school players didn't even get to watch him, or maybe have no idea who he is. But that comp made too much sense in my head not to use. Just a big physical dude that is going to go through you, not around you.
Sure you got this picture from like his Washburn photo day? I mean, he almost looks like he's posing for like in a Gators uniform. He's about to go play SEC ball with his build. Like that's
his lack of speed doesn't hinder his performance just because he does it in other ways that that other running backs don't do. So that's the only like thing that I would say that. But when you're 5'10", 240, you're not going to be fast,
No.
right? And you're going to have a certain prototype to it, and he lives up to that archetype. Here we go. Let's go on to Bloomington Jefferson, home turk, so to speak.
Yeah,
over there for you.
Not very good at tackling the run. Uh-oh.
Well, they got Washburn week 1, so
Yeah.
watch out.
Ooh, yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, man. Like I said, this is where I got my coaching start, was at Bloomington Jefferson. I learned a ton from then head coach Tim Carlson. He gave me the opportunity to start. Now Woody Bachman's the head coach over there. Just tons of great guys I coach with. Dave Ladd, Tally Squires, Mike McEntee. Just tons of great guys I love over there. I don't know what to think about Jefferson, man, because like when the sections first came out and I saw like the 5 teams in this section, I was like, oh, Jefferson's going to get a free ride into the state tournament. They'll probably get annihilated by Elk River or Alexandria in the first round, but at least they'll make it to the state tournament. And I was just really hyped for that. But then as I started to really look at some of these games, Jefferson classic spread offense, but they play a 4-2 flex defense, which essentially is like a nickel package. And think about a lot of these teams they play. It'll match up pretty solidly against like a St. Louis Park or a Minneapolis Washburn. But Hastings, they got Shatek over there. He's a great running back. They're a physical team. CDH, they'll spread it out, but they're still pretty physical. Tartan and Matamidi may not be the best teams, but they're still very physical and big. They'll push you around. And then I haven't seen Kennedy in a few years, but that's another thing I'm hyped for with the Jaguars. We finally are bringing back the Battle of Bloomington. We haven't seen Jefferson versus Kennedy since 2018. It's long overdue to get that rematch.
Missed opportunity there for high school football, but whatever.
Tell me about it. It's like if the state high school league decided Lakeville North and Lakeville South are never going to play football again. Right. It'd be like, what?
Exactly. Yeah. Got to feed the rivalries here.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, no, I just will see what they decide to do with that 4-2 flex defense and how it stacks up with some of these teams. Because my personal opinion, that some of these matchups I would not be putting 5 DBs out on the field against. But what are your thoughts, Caleb, as an outsider of Bloomington Jefferson?
Well, they lost to Hastings twice last year. Hastings, a bottom of the middle road team, if I will. I think there could be, you went 2-7 last year, so it's not like there's a lot of expectations. But I also look at the schedule, and it looks, I don't know. I'm not going to say daunting, but I think Benild's going to be a better team than what they were last year. Kennedy's weird because I feel like Kennedy, we'll talk about them. Interesting. SLP in Washburn, maybe like the biggest opportunity areas, just looking at the schedule.
Definitely key games considering their section opponents.
I would have said Hastings was another one, but who knows? Maybe they got a revenge game in them after. Not familiar with how many people are graduating from each team that are coming back. So that can always change, and who knows? Maybe Bloomington does beat a Hastings this year.
Maybe. They do have a very good senior class. I will say that. When I coached these kids when they were 9th graders, I mean, they had pretty much every position covered, except middle linebacker Anders Bjorklund. I don't think he kept playing football, but if he's not, you need to play football this season. Go get that scholarship.
Shout out. Paulo Espinoza. Yeah. DT, class of 2028. So a young dude, got some varsity time as a freshman last season. Was pretty good. I think he's more of like a true defensive tackle, especially right now. Big run stuffer, the strength and like how much power he has as a freshman going against varsity guys was really impressive. Whoa. Some guys can play anywhere on the defensive line. He's an inside guy, and I don't think he's going to graduate to be like an end or anything like that. But again, put him in the middle, put him as a nose tackle, a 3 technique, like, and he's gonna do what you want and cause havoc and be a headache for offensive linemen going against him.
Definitely. Maybe maybe they will give Washburn some problems in the run game then. If they got big boys up front, we'll see. It just depends on whether Jefferson's offense maintains drives and keeps things going, keeps that defense off the field. I guess Hastings is going to do a lot of C gap runs instead of going A or B gap this year against Jefferson. But no, I mean, like you touched on it. He's only a freshman. He's getting varsity snaps, even at a school like Bloomington Jefferson. Like, sure, they're not known for having the biggest kids around, but just being able to play at the varsity level as a freshman is incredible. Because, I mean, think about it. You're basically playing with kids that are almost grown adults, and you're just coming out of middle school. Like, it's when you kind of put that in perspective, it's not like college where, like, oh, a freshman in college versus a senior in college. Like, sure, there's development, but you're all still adults. Like, this is like man versus child almost.
And you'd think it's only going to go up from here. The freshman season is going to be like the worst he's going to be in terms of growing, not only physically, but mentally, learning the game at the varsity level as well. So a player to watch out for, not for just next year, but the foreseeable future in Jefferson.
Definitely. Go get that state, not state title, but make it to state, Jags. Let's do it this year.
We'll see. Bloomington Kennedy. I mentioned in Jefferson's preview that it was an interesting team that it's hard to get a read on, at least from my perspective, because I feel like they've had good players and everything, but I was kind of surprised when I saw a 2-7 record last year. Not being the most plugged into 5A, but that caught me a little bit off guard. What are your thoughts on Kennedy?
I'm kind of surprised Kennedy still has their own independent football program, because I know, like, with Bloomington youth football, I would have thought by now that maybe the two Bloomington schools just combine into one football team. And I guess at that point they'd have to play 6A, so maybe they don't want to do that. But yeah, I don't know. If the Kennedy Eagles still run a 4-4 defense against this schedule, might be giving up quite a few yards through the air. I don't know about that. And I think their offense is still more of like I formation, single back, pro style, a lot of 21 and 12 personnel. They definitely want to run the ball and be more physical. So I think that kind of plays well into their style. As far as like competing against some of these other teams, it's hard to say because they used to be one of those Twin Cities League teams. But so now that they're playing more, I guess, like regular 5A teams, if that's the proper word, like upper echelon, we'll say, 5A teams, it's just a matter of how is Kennedy going to stack up. And it's not like they're playing the most like competitive teams. Like, obviously you don't have like a Chanhassen or like Rochester Mayo or Elk River on your schedule. Matamidi can still get it done. Park Center is still a pretty solid team. So outside of that, there's a lot of opportunity for Kennedy to get some wins. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm realizing that the records on here are wrong as I'm going back. So 4-5, 2-7, and then 7-2 in 2022. So it kind of backs up my initial point of I thought they were better than what a 2-7 record was. Yes, I guess they are better than a 2-7 record because they were 4-5. I might go and fix it. So you guys might be seeing the right records up here, but just know initially that they were wrong, and that's why we were talking about them. But yeah, I think when I look at like what Kennedy has, I feel like they do have some players to make a difference, and some of those graduated, so they're going to have to restock. And I think they fell victim to Apple Valley last season in the playoffs, and that ended up as a 35-0 game. But
I'm sorry, just fall victim and Apple Valley are two things I did not expect.
You're a certified Apple Valley hater. I know that.
I don't know about hater. I got my beef with the Eagles. They still owe me a refund for that scout playbook that I made up for them for the 10 days they were in 6A this past spring.
They lost to Washburn, their second to last game, 50-7 or 7-50.
Whoa,
that's kind of a little bit of a stunner. And again, who knows who's going to graduate, who's going to come up and replenish talent. But Will they be better than 4-5? I think they might be right around there.
I could see them beating like Columbia Heights, Tartan, and Minneapolis Roosevelt, but then like the other 5 games, like sure, Jefferson will be a fun like rivalry renewed, but like Matamidi, SLP, Park Center, and especially CDH, I don't see them beating Cretin-Durham Hall. Yeah, I don't know. I just think a lot of those teams, especially being mostly spread offenses with some of those, just kind of give Kennedy's 4-4 defense a mismatch that does not favor them.
One of the guys on this team, Javion Kelly, offensive tackle, class of 2026. I don't know if you got to watch some of this dude's film. If you haven't, or if any of the listeners haven't, search this guy up, put Huddle after it. It'll pop up in your Google, click it, look at his junior film. It's kind of like I put one of my things that I wrote was like a Road to Glory player. And now you can't play as an offensive tackle in Road to Glory.
Oh,
but
shame.
If you could, I think it would kind of look like this guy's huddle tape. He's like pancaking everybody, going down the field, 15 plus yards, making blocks, 6'7", 275, South Dakota State commit. One of my things was, who will he add to his graveyard this year? Because it feels like it's just that's what he's doing. I feel like he's building a graveyard of defensive players that he's pancaked, and he's only adding to the list, and I'm sure he'll add to it this season.
Yeah, I was just watching. He's got a highlight versus Richfield up on his huddle, and he just absolutely bodied a safety. Like, I mean, he didn't even need to like knock him; just straight up pushed, and the kid like crumbled.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
boy.
dude can move too. It's not like he's
it's like 10 yards downfield.
Yeah, a big station, and he can get downfield. He can go laterally, and a very fun kid to watch play offensive line at that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Oh, and then just to make sure when the kid gets back up, he pushes him back down. It's like, oh no, my running back's not past you yet. You get back down on that ground. That's
yeah.
how you
I think
finish.
this is I've watched pretty much everybody's huddle film that I highlighted, but he has one where he goes to it's a play going to the left. He makes a block. He makes a second block on him, and then he makes like a third block to spring the dude for it. And I'm like, man, that's insane stuff. No wonder he's going Division I, but quite a talent Kennedy's got over there on the offensive line.
Oh yeah, might be. It was not Richfield. I don't want to throw shade at Richfield. It was St. Paul Harding Humboldt that gave up the highlight.
Weird.
Wow, what a weapon. Yeah, I'm sure he's excited to see the Battle of Bloomington. All right, wait, you know what? Before we move on to Section 6, Caleb, I want your thought. Well, you can keep it on that slide, but I want your thoughts. So for the viewers, like to understand, this has been a huge talk amongst 5A coaches. Those 5 teams we just talked about in Section 5, one of them is guaranteed a spot in the state tournament. One of those teams is going to be one of the 8 state final teams in 5A. Which one of those 5 teams do you think it'll be?
Well, I just want to say this. I think it's a little going back to our off-season podcast. I'm going to call this it's close enough to the season. But our off-season ones where we kind of talked about like the structure of the playoffs and how certain sections were weaker, but we're still rewarded with a playoff spot. I get it's kind of like the NFL division, like there can be a bad division in the NFL and they still get a playoff spot. I don't know how I feel about that. I think it should just be, you do your regular seasons and then I feel like there could be a better way or to even out the sections. I get there's a lot more logistics that go into it. That being said, give me Washburn.
Ooh, so Washburn is going to be fed to the top seed out of Section 6, 7, or 8 in the first round of the playoffs then.
I mean, I think so. And once we get to 5A and below, my knowledge of like the players drops off a little bit just because there is like a ton more. There's 43 teams compared to 32. So that's like 13. I don't know. I'm not good at math.
Whole extra 33%. Yeah.
You can do the math. It's just more players that you got to take in consideration. And then the the player information is less too, whereas it's just harder to gather information on some of these players. But yeah, I'll be a Washburn believer. I got to watch out, got to go into their scrimmages and see them for a little bit.
Miller
But I think
Pride. Okay.
it's not going to be easy, if that makes sense. I think there's going to be one of these teams is going to challenge him. I don't know who that's going to be. You think it might be Jefferson?
I think it's Jefferson, man. I'm staying true to the blue. I got the Jaguars just barely edging out Washburn. Like I said, regardless of which of these two teams it is, they're probably going to get smoked by Elk River first round of the playoffs, or maybe Alexandria or Armstrong. But at least those kids will get the opportunity to play in a state tournament football game.
Yeah, I think we'll see. What do they play? Week 1, week 2?
Week 1. Yeah.
Hey, that'll tell us a lot of who's going to come out of this section, in my opinion. But yeah, let's move on to section 6. Here we go. I'll add them up, but it is none other than the Buffalo Bison coming down from 6A back to 5A. But they weren't really playing a full 6A. They were playing a full 6A schedule, but as we know, they were in the Maroon District, so facing the bottom tier teams in 6A and kind of getting it worked whenever they did go against an upper echelon team. So I think it's a good move for them to go down. But I think like in the past, even in 5A, like they weren't a good team in 5A from my research, as far as like what's on the screen. So I was going to be like, they're coming down to 5A. I'm going to be a big believer. I'm not sure if I am a Bison believer, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so before I go into full detail of the Bison, I was messaging with one of their coaches because he watches a bunch of my live streams, and I showed him that one of their parents in the 2023 season recorded every single Bison football game. I guess, I don't know if it was like scout film for the quarterback or whatever, but they got every single Bison offensive hand signal all out there on YouTube from every single one of their games. And he's like, dude, nice. I can't believe one of our parents like sabotaged us like that. That's crazy. So yeah, if I'm a Buffalo Bison, I'm probably making sure all that footage gets taken down before any of these teams find it. But as for the Bison themselves, I think you hit the nail on the head perfectly when you were talking about them being a Maroon team, because like those 23 and 24 seasons look like they showed improvement. But if you think about those 10 wins they had in those 2 seasons, it was against Metro Maroon teams. You beat Burnsville, Roseville, Hopkins before they were fighting the world, Park Cottage Grove, and then Eastview. Like not exactly the biggest competition, but they were 10-0 against those teams. But then when you have to play other teams like Minnetonka, Prior Lake, and Eden Prairie, obviously it's a bit of a difference in terms of quality of opponent. They got absolutely thrashed, and that's where the 8 losses come in. Then I think they also lost to Woodbury first round of the playoffs 2023, and then the Rangers actually took it to them first round of 2024.
They took it to them. And then the last, doing some on-the-fly research in 2022, their playoff loss was Rogers, interesting enough. 14-38 in the section quarterfinal. So again, a first round exit in that season as well. I don't know. I don't know. I think Grant Benson is going to be their quarterback. I've, heard good things about him, but then when I go to, like the film and stats wise, it doesn't pop. And sometimes it's like the talent, like there can be talent there, and it's a matter of like offensive scheme. I think the only Bison game that I've been to was last year during Roseville. I think they played Roseville, and their offensive scheme, correct me if I'm wrong, but for that game, they're running like a lot of, I don't know, two back offense, and you're probably more scheme wise into it than me, but 2-back offense, it seemed a lot of like horizontal run plays.
Yeah, they love
I don't
their
know if
like
it
quarterback
fits
lead and all that.
Yeah, I don't know if it is the best fit or what's going on over there. I know they do got talent. I think Matthew Jordan is one of the guys that I think is going to be a good player for them this season. I think they have another receiver. Ends with the Z. Well, Matthew Jordan. All right, I won't try to remember the name. But receiver safety, class of 2027. Great size. He's bigger than most receivers. And I think the other receiver I'm thinking of is more of like a slot receiver, shifty. And this, I would picture this guy as more of an X receiver. And I want to see him play. I think he's playing like mostly Z receiver, which is like the field receiver, to explain it in layman's terms to people. Like the X receiver is usually the solo guy on the backside of the formation that your offense wants, like alone working. Matthew was working as the far guy on the field side, which makes it like really hard to get him the ball and incorporate in the offense. He does have some film of running, some dig routes, getting him the ball in space, but I think they can use him a little bit better and get him the ball easier than making it such a tough throw for a high school quarterback to make that throw to the receiver on the far side. Because when you get to that opposite hash to opposite sideline, it's really long in high school football.
It is.
So it's not even like a quarterback issue, but it's just like a reality that high school quarterbacks and OCs have to face of how are we going to navigate this with such a big field.
Definitely. When you're on the hash, a quick little bubble pass that everyone watching at home is like, we're just throwing it horizontally. It's like, well, yeah, but that's still like the same as a 30-yard pass straight downfield because there's just that much distance from the opposite hash. Yeah. But no, I mean, Buffalo is pretty much a spread offense. It's interesting they were doing 2-back stuff. Normally it's a lot of like 1-back, 10 and 11 personnel, and then they love to run their quarterback.
I would refer to you on like the scheme stuff, but just because I got a lot of stuff going on when I'm at games, but I'm trying to observe as much as I can.
I would not be surprised if they had, like you said, that 2-back set with still 3 wide receivers. I'm kind of like Farmington used to do that. They'd have 10, 11, and then a 20 personnel set. I'm sure Buffalo's the same way. They do have 4 down linemen, though. I think they're a 4-2 flex defense, and I think on their schedule there was like Bemidji's on there. They're a pretty run-heavy team. Spring Lake Park's another run-heavy team. We'll talk about both those teams here in a little bit. But I don't know, man. At least you don't have to play Eden Prairie and Minnetonka anymore. But you got some tough games, and you got to travel too. Like Bemidji and Brainerd are far away. Cooper and Armstrong won't be pushovers. Monticello is going to be a solid team. It's pretty tough first 5 games for the Bison.
Yeah, Hendricks Gatz was the receiver, like the shiftier slot receiver. He wears number 1 for Buffalo that I was trying to think of, but I think Buffalo has they have a good quarterback and they have 2 good receivers. At least that's a start. And now it's just trying to build something. Let's get Matthew Jordan some touchdowns this season, and I think they'll be going on their way to hopefully a successful season. Robbinsdale Armstrong. They had one of the best running backs in state last season. That was kind of like their identity in Johnson. Obviously moving on because he was a senior last season. So, and I think their quarterback's also Dawson Frankie. I think I want to say his name is. He's moving on. He was a senior, a really good baseball player for them as well. Moving on as well. So, but I think, looking at their defense, I think they got a lot of defensive pieces coming back, at least pillars that they're going to be able to build on. What are your thoughts on Armstrong?
Oh goodness, first of all, I think some of the records might be off for them because I know they were 10-1 last season. And I think the year before that, what were they in 2023? I know that they've been like really good in terms of regular seasons. I think 2019 they might have been undefeated too.
Gotcha. We'll pretend like they're right because I'll go and when I make this, it's hard making
how many of them? Like several hundred.
So many because I copy and paste the last team. So 8-3 in 2023. Really good last season as well. Definitely a team that you didn't want to mess with. They ran into Alexandria, unfortunately, who made it to the state championship. But Yeah.
Yeah, I guess getting my thoughts on my most recent live stream when I was breaking down I don't even remember what two teams it was. It was so long ago. But someone randomly came into chat and asked me if I could give input on why Robbinsdale Armstrong seems to keep hitting a brick wall every season in the state quarterfinal. And as I kind of went back through the games, it's either they're playing really amazing opponents or their game just doesn't necessarily translate to like deep in the playoffs. I mean, if you think about it, the state quarterfinal game is an outdoor game in November in Minnesota. It's cold, and there's a pretty good chance it's going to be snowing. And a spread offense with a 3-3 stack defense doesn't necessarily work when you have to play like a physical Rogers team in the snow or a physical Elk River team. Or like you said, this past season, they ran into Alexandria, who was one of the top teams in the state, made it all the way to the title game, and pretty much held their own against Elk River until the second half. But yeah, I don't know. I think Armstrong should still be. They got a really good senior class this year. They easily should start off 5-0, in my opinion. It's those last 3 games of the season that kind of give me worries. I've heard they've switched their 3-3 stack to more of a 3-4 defense. I still wouldn't use that package against Elk River, but I think they can at least get by Cooper, maybe 6-2 regular season, depending on those Elk River Alexandria games. But that's probably the floor for them. I easily see them being 6-2 at worst, 8-0 at best.
Yeah. When you look and try to diagnose, why I haven't made it to the state championship or super far, sometimes it can be like an oversimplification of like, you maybe think it's this invisible thing that's stopping them, but maybe they're just running into good teams at the wrong time. Because it's not like they're getting blown out of the playoffs. Like they lost to Alexandria by 3 points. And I think Alexandria scored the last 10 of their points in the fourth quarter. So like they were winning for most of that game, going up against a really good Alexandria team, like we talked about. And sometimes you just lose those games. And if you play that game 5 times in a row, there are cases where Armstrong does win that game, but that's the thing about football. There's no series, there's no anything. It's cutthroat. It's one mistake, one block, one missed tackle, one blown assignment can throw away your whole season and make it look less than what it actually was. And yeah, I like Armstrong. I really liked them last year. It'll be interesting to see what happens on the offensive side of the ball with kind of 2 of their major key players graduating. But Jackson Wiley is going to be my player to watch out for. I think they got Cal Pylon, another linebacker that's also really good as well. Might be the best linebacker duo in 5A for my money. Both of these guys really good, but Wiley, class of 2026, most tackles of any returning player on this roster. So, he's got that going for him. I did loaded cannon. I don't know if you guys can visualize, but just I picture a cannon wherever he is, in the linebacker backfield. And when he diagnoses a run, it's like now that he goes and like you blink and he's tackling the running back in the backfield. And it's not just a tackle, but it's a plant. It's forcible contact. Like he's really aggressive. Definitely not shy of contact, nor can you be as a linebacker. But, some linebackers like to move east and west and, make tackles, but they aren't necessarily hard hitters. That's not the case with this guy. Definitely really good in the run. And then also I put possibly the best pass coverage linebacker in Minnesota. Don't ask Cretan about that because they don't want to think about it. But just like on tape, he has a lot of good just film of him covering passes, whether it's interceptions, whether it's batted balls, or it's just him in position for a tackle when a receiver catches the ball as well. That also plays in a role in pass coverage, but really impressive. And I also think with the leaving of Johnson, their running back, he is taking some reps at running back too. So he might be one of one of the guys that goes both ways. That's, I heard, a little bit in question. Like, he probably will get some time on offense, but it's not going to be, I think his main position for Armstrong is going to be, their lead tackler once again, with byline of, making tackles, making hits, and scaring opposing offenses as much as it can.
Yeah, if I'm Robbinsdale Cooper, I would not want to be running inside zone against him. That's all I can say. You know what, Caleb? I might say pencil in Armstrong as my state representative from 5A Section 6. I don't know that anyone else is going to give the Falcons much of a trouble on their way to the state title, or at least to the state quarterfinal. But we'll see what happens once they get there. And they do have a really solid senior class. I'm excited to see the Falcons. You know what? Interesting note about the Falcons. They used to play 6A football prior to the 2019 season. And I think if you actually didn't factor in the number of kids on free and reduced lunch, you took just their base enrollment, I think they're actually bigger than a decent chunk of 6A teams. Like, I'm pretty sure that enrollment wise, their school is actually bigger than Lakeville North or Lakeville South. So,
I think you're right on this, because I was doing in my off-season posts of updating the classes and just stuff like that. That I posted something about these are the 6A teams, and I know there's one comment about referring to Armstrong as being questioning why weren't they, or just wondering why they weren't a 6A team. And again, like what you said, when you take in the whole enrollment, they would be, but that's not what classes and that's not what they're doing. It's athletic enrollment, so it's taking away free and reduced lunch kids in the district. And I'm not totally sure on how all that's calculated, but I know that
40%,
like you're talking about, it would be a 6A team, but with that, you factor in that, and it does bump them down to a 5A team.
Yeah, I mean, if they ever want to opt up and play 6A, I'm sure a team like Park Cottage Grove or Roseville or Eastview might be
that is a good point. It's not like they don't have. It's not like they're stuck in 5A. If they did want to come up and their head coach, thinks that they either should go up for those two, but they have the opportunity to go up nonetheless. But still in 5A for the time being, for at least the next 2 years.
Definitely. Well, and if they did opt up, they'd be stuck in the Metro West based on their geography. And I don't think they want to play like Edina, Maple Grove, Minnetonka, and EP. So I'm sure they're fine.
No matter what team you are, you don't want to play in the Metro West. That's
unless you're Moorhead.
Yeah. Well, hey, they don't want to be playing in there. I can tell you that. They do not want to be playing in there. Nor do I blame them. Moving on, Robbinsdale Cooper, 8-2 last season. The team that eliminated them was the other Robbinsdale team, and Armstrong got the best of them to end the season. Only lost by 8 points. So a good game nonetheless to kind of end their season in a disappointing fashion when you go, 9-1 leading up to that, and then you have your big rival that you want to play and beat. Especially they had Emmanuel Carmo, some other good players on that Robbinsdale team that were seniors. Those guys won't be back for their next. So interesting Robbinsdale Cooper team. What are your thoughts on them?
Goodness, I never know what to make of Robbinsdale Cooper. Like, you can see just from their records, they're one of the most inconsistent teams in 5A. They could either be lights out and get a state berth, or they could be a bottom tier team. Like, you never know. And it seems like it's never anywhere in between. They're always either like on fire or just frozen solid. And then, of course, if they do end up being a good team, they usually get stonewalled by Armstrong in their section final. So it's kind of tough for them to make state. But great school. I think Coach Willie Howard's still there, former Viking. I think he's also the athletic director now, which, pretty rare. It's where I'm from in Illinois, you actually can't do that, but you can totally do it in Minnesota. But even just looking at their schedule here, like their 3-4 defense, their athletic spread offense with all the weapons they have, I can easily see them going 7-1. Like, I mean, they got a pretty favorable schedule here. Like St. Francis, they should win. Holy Angels, another 4A team on there. They should. I mean, I don't want to discount, Holy Angels, even though they're 4A, they still have a solid team over there.
I think they might be the best competition in like their first 5 weeks.
I would agree, relatively speaking, yes.
Yeah, and I don't know, the Park Center Robbinsdale game I was a part of. Like, I went to record it, and it was like the most physical football game that it was the most physical game of any of the games that I went to last season. So, and I'm not familiar with that whole dynamic of those two teams playing, but I know last season that it was a good game, and were bodies everywhere. They're just like some of the hardest hits. So that'll be a fun one to watch for week 4. But they got to get past Armstrong. That's got to be their motto. And basically everything's leading up to week 7. I know they got a good quarterback. I think Beckham's going to be their starter. Samaj Young is another guy that made it my Instagram. Of like really good receiver and defensive back as well. I think he's probably going to be playing both ways.
That's the way it is in 5A.
Yeah, one of the best receivers in 5A without a doubt. And yeah, I think it'll be interesting. They got Amari Davison coming back as a running back. He led the team in carries last season. He has 4.6 on his huddle. I don't believe it, but not in a bad way. Like, he just pulls away from dudes, and as soon as he gets to open field, it's like, watch him go, because you're not going to catch him. And one of the exact opposite of a Washburn running back, Hayes. Like, this is more of a receiver, a slot receiver type build, playing running back.
Like that elusive kind of kid. You're
right.
Like horizontal stretch the field as opposed to your downhill power back.
I don't know how familiar you are with Oregon University, but a couple Ducks, LaMichael James, kind of like in the same, more of a running back, but DeAnthony Thomas was also another dude that kind of reminded me of Amari. And I don't know if anybody's seen prime DeAnthony Thomas highlights, but that is quite the person to be compared to. Just a fast, shifty guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield, can be a running back, and once he gets into the open field, it's like, can't catch him. So I think Davison's going to be a fun player to complement Beckham and also Young on. I think it's going to be a run and passing offense. Not just, a one-dimensional where they can only pass because they only got playmakers on the edge, or they can only run because they don't, So I think it'll be definitely an explosive offense, one of the more explosive offenses to watch in 5A.
Can it be explosive enough to take down the Armstrong Falcons? I mean, I was kind of saying I was penciling in Armstrong, but Cooper has a favorable schedule. If they want to prove me wrong, go out and win that Battle of Robbinsdale week 7 and then do it again in the section final.
I think it's hard to pick preseason wise, but I think as they're going into their matchup, what did we say that was week 7? Mm-hmm. I think week 7, you'll be able to tell just based on like how their seasons have went. What's gonna be going down, because I don't know. I think Armstrong, the offense makes me a little nervous when you when your two best dudes leave. It just, not saying that they can't replace them, but it's hard to replace such big, because Johnson was like their identity last season.
Oh, he was a stud.
And when you lose that, you kind of need to find who you are, and they have time to find who they are before their big matchup week 7 with Cooper. So, yeah, anything else?
No, sir. Hopefully the Hawks don't give me too much hate for picking Armstrong over them. Like I said, if you want to prove me wrong, go out there and do it.
You have to make a preseason pick and that's just the reality of it. We got to make our best guesses and live with the results of being wrong or being right. And most of the time, it's probably going to end up being wrong, to be honest. Park Center here, kind of a middle-of-the-road team for the past 3 years, struggling with a case of mediocrity, to say. 2021 looks like they were 8-2, so their last really strong year was 2021. Is Park Center going to return to their 2021 days? What do you think?
There's definitely a lot of games on there where they can be competitive, like looking at De La Salle, Kennedy, St. Louis Park, Buffalo. I think the back half of their schedule, they can be pretty competitive. Even like Irondale or Spring Lake Park, I think they'll be solid in. It's just those two Robbinsdale games that kind of make me go, I'm not so sure about, but I could easily see like a 6-2 out of a team that actually is called the Pirates, unlike Hastings. I know your favorite mascot. But no, I was watching, what was it? I think I was watching Park Center versus maybe Rogers or someone from last season. It was an awesome game. I mean, Park Center kids are flying around having fun. Maybe it was Sartell, actually. It was Sartell. They're flying around having fun. They got athletes all over the place. Their head coach just seems like he coaches with tons of passion. He's a very active guy on the sideline and everything. He brings all the energy. So I really like kind of the vibe that Park Center has going on, and I definitely see them being on the rise in 2025.
Debuting the black helmets this season, they have went with a green with the yellow face mask, but this is a team that I got to see at a 7-on-7, and it's like black helmets, huh? So yes, black helmets, and they also did get new uniforms as well, from what I can tell on social media, that look pretty nice. So hopefully they have a good inaugural season in the old black helmets and a nice uniform combo. But I don't know how I feel about this team. I know you say they're up on the rise, or I don't know exactly your quote, okay, but
I want to see
they're
them
losing
on the rise in 2025.
They're losing a lot of playmakers. Tyjon Brooks, I think, is going to South Dakota State. Sean Freeman, I think, was another dude. Randy Quietti or something like that. They got, and I think some of those guys went to JUCO as well, and are probably going to be Division I players that graduated. But I think the quarterback spot was a point of, it was a swinging point for them last season, where if they probably had a better quarterback, that they would have been able to get their playmakers the ball a little bit more, and probably had a better record to show for it. And I think that's kind of what it comes down to. Is I think Park Center is always going to have guys on the edge that can go in, make plays, like RJ Klee, who's going to be So hey, that's the new uniform.
Yes.
So, but I think it's a matter of who's going to get them the ball, and is it going to be good enough to be an upper team, a team to mess with in 5A, and it just hasn't been the past 3 years. And I'll be interested to see how the quarterback play at the 7-on-7 that I was at it wasn't jumping out of the film being like, ooh, they actually got a dude this year. But it's more of I have to wait and see how he's going to do during the season. And RJ Klee was a good player. He was actually a standout from that 7-on-7 that I went to. It felt like every pass was going to him. Like I said, there's a playmaker vacancy at Park Center now with all those dudes leaving. I think there's a way for he got some run last season. He got some touchdowns, but I think this spot that he's going to be able to fill, it just leaves a ton of opportunity for him. So a lot of upside here, and I'm betting on RJ Klee to have a big season for Park Center.
I'm hoping they have a big season because, something we haven't touched on yet. And I think we might have touched on this when we were previewing our 6A teams in Section 5. We kind of talked about how that Osseo school district that's got Park Center, Osseo, and Maple Grove is going to be redrawing their boundaries soon, because the far west side with Fernbrook Elementary and Maple Grove High School is just way bigger than Osseo or Park Center. So we're potentially going to see a lot of those boundaries shift to the east, 2027, depending on how many kids get rerouted to Park Center, we may be looking at a 6A Park Center Pirates team.
Interesting speculation. I knew you said they were gonna rewrite the boundaries, or however you want to say it, but I didn't know that it was, what's the word? I didn't know that Maple Grove was the bigger boundary.
Oh yeah,
You know?
Maple Grove is huge, and I mean that's where all their development is like just to the northwest of Maple Grove, like along 94 up there. It's gotten so big. There's way too like I think open enrollment, from what Coach Sproul told me, is actually closed at Maple Grove High School right now because they just don't have room for all the kids. So when a district encounters something like that, do you build onto the current high school? Do you build another high school, or do you redraw boundaries and send all those kids to your 2 other high schools?
Yeah, interesting point. So that's something you've already mentioned, but news to me. I guess I probably could have guessed that Maple Grove was the bigger like boundary area wise, but I guess I never really thought about that being, why they're gonna redraw the boundaries. So yeah, interesting.
Oh yeah, they've got like 800 or 900 more kids just in terms of athletic enrollment over Park Center. Even Osceo's got like a 300 student lead over them. So yeah, there's a bit of a discrepancy in population of those 3 Osseo schools.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, something to keep an eye on. Not, that's not going to be news anytime soon, but
No.
News 2 years from now that will be worthwhile to keep an eye on. Irondale coming in, struggling the past 2 seasons, to put it lightly. Not able to keep their head above water. Is that going to change this season? What do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, Irondale might be the 5A team I knew the least about prior to like when I was doing all the preparation. Like, all right, I got to do refreshers. I got to watch a bunch of these teams' films again, just so I get like an idea of how they've changed over the last 3 seasons. And Irondale, I'm like, oh, I guess they're a 3-4 defense. They're a spread offense now. I think they used to be more pro style eye running stuff, but
I don't think, at least from the scrimmage that I was at, they were running like I formation. Yeah.
So they're changing their offense again?
Hey, from what I saw, they would line up their I formation. I mean, sometimes they'd be in the gun, but usually they'd come out in I formation. And, like the first plays on scrimmages when you're coming out, like is going to be your base formation or whatever. You don't come out and your first play of your scrimmage run a formation that you don't really use a ton, right?
Unless you're Woodbury or Rosemount. Yes, you're correct.
So like one of my main points is like, I don't know if I end up running like the I formation. I don't know if that is when I was trying to figure out the 1-8, and not looking at like a ton of Irondale film from those 2 seasons. What were they running? Were they running spread, you said, or were they running the I formation?
It looked a lot more like, especially last season when I was watching some of their games, it looked like they were doing a lot more gun, 11 and personnel spread stuff. And I'm like, oh, that's different. But then again, it's kind of like we talked about with like a Rosemount when we did our 6A stuff. When you have a pro eye and a gun spread offense, those aren't the same offenses. The techniques are different. And when you have all those different plays out of those 2 systems, how do you find the time in practice to rep all of those? And then how do you find the time in Indy to practice the skills for each of those different offenses like that? I think we might be uncovering why they've been having some struggles live on the podcast.
Yeah,
but
and I don't know I didn't dive into like the head coaching, if they've had like a new head coach in like when he took over, how long their current head coach has been there. But I remember when I was in high school, like Irondale wasn't terrible. They're like middle of the road-ish, kind of like that 2021 season there, 4-5. Even 2-3 looks bad, but 2-3 isn't like it's basically the equivalent of 4-5 if you think about it. So like just under average is kind of what I see from like the outside perspective. And then they went 6-4 and then 2 down years. it's also another team that I struggled getting information on a ton. I just kind of had to go off of what I saw from the scrimmages as well. They don't have a lot of their players like being able to be seen a ton. I think they got a younger quarterback. I think his last name's Cooper or something. But he's like a smaller quarterback. So like putting him in the I formation and like big play action passes in the pocket, I don't think is going to be like his strength. I think if I was creating an offense around him, and obviously it's not realistic to create offense just based on like one person and an unproven person at that. But just like he throws a good ball, just like shelling the ball out, getting the ball out of his hands to where he's not having to make big reads multiple seconds after the ball snap during the pocket when, you know, big D linemen and big offensive linemen are going to be right in front of him. That was one of the things of just my thoughts on how could they change a little bit to improve. And I know he's a younger quarterback, so I think he's going to have at least 2 or 3 years in the system. If he's the starter, who knows if he's going to be starting, because I know they were splitting some sort of reps at the scrimmage. So interesting team to get a read on, and I wasn't able to come up with like a player for sure to watch for, and I think it was one of the only teams that I wasn't able to. Not that they don't have, because I think I think it was number 3 in my video, a big receiver, safety, defensive dude. I don't know. His practice jersey was number 3, but he just had like this size and everything that I'd be like, oh, but then I saw him and he'd be the X receiver on an I formation, and you could just see him come off the ball and be like, I got to block again, you know?
Oh, you never want to see that from a receiver. Come on, man.
So, you know, and that's, I don't know what's going to happen. So we'll see. But I think if they use that dude, I wasn't able to find out who it was, and maybe throw him a couple of jump balls, or maybe he can make some plays defensively for him. But yeah.
Sounds like Irondale needs to resurrect Bill Walsh, have him teach him a West Coast single back 11 personnel offense, just based on the talent of the quarterback you were describing to me. That sounds like the perfect system for him. Quick reads, ball out within 3 seconds, set up your stretch run game off of that. Might be pretty good for them, but yeah, I don't know.
Only time will tell, that's for sure.
They have a 4A game too. I just realized week 4. That's Fridley, isn't it?
Yeah, Fridley. I think that's a winnable game for a team. Cambridge-Isanti wasn't very good last season as well. St. Francis being another one, and maybe they can stun the Bison week 6. We'll see. It's going to be hard to do worse than 2024, and I think like the end of the season ends pretty favorably for them. Other than once they get past the Hawks, I think those 3 games can be for the taking if they want it, depending on what's going down over there. But
I just realized they're in the same school district as Mounds View. I had no idea that Irondale and Mounds View were the same school district.
Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't even know. Like we've played Irondale, but I wouldn't be able to navigate to their stadium. I wouldn't be able to.
Me neither. It's somewhere over there by Shoreview, I think.
But regardless, let's move on to section 7, and we got one of the headliners. I think, so Elk River coming off a state title, not only appearance, but a W. Hey, you know, when you say you make wrong predictions, I picked against them in the state title, and you know, guess what? They made me eat my words, but I'm not going to pretend like I didn't pick against them. I'm just going to come out and say that I don't have a personal vendetta against Elk River type offenses, but my whole reason for not picking Elk River in the playoff game was if Elk River gets down big, they're not going to be able to come back. If Chanhassen gets down, I like their offense to be able to come back more. And now The only problem was I think I mentioned to you, Elk River doesn't really get down big pretty much ever.
No,
but
they take major precautions to prevent
the thing that skewed my thoughts was I texted you this. The only game that I went to last season for the Elks in person was the Andover Elk River game.
The one game they lost.
Exactly. And Andover didn't only beat them, but they took it to them. And the reason Elk River wasn't able to come back was because of the reason why I picked Chanhassen to win the 5A state, Alexandria to win the 5A state title game, was because if they get down, Elk River's not going to be able to come back. So that was kind of the thing that skewed my thoughts going into that game. And yeah, so Elk River, all that to say, what are your thoughts on Elk River?
I mean, I don't blame you for the Alexandria pick, but at the same time, you know, Coach Hamilton's thinking that same thing. Chase Thompson's a great football player, but not when he's sitting on the bench for 9 minutes a quarter. So all about kind of that strategy.
It was my first year picking games, all right. And like I said, I'm bound to be wrong more than I'm going to be right. But
I make wrong picks all the time. I already am having Apple Valley people telling me get ready to eat that whole chocolate cake when we beat St. Thomas Academy. So
can't wait for the live stream.
But no, I honestly, Caleb, I think Elk River might be my other state title favorite for 5A. They got a bunch of returning talent. I think Levi Harris is a young man's name. Yep. He's an absolute track star. He's a stud. He plays quarterback. You actually broke down one of their plays against Chanhassen was one of his quarterback keeps and just all the blocking assignments. Like, sure, Elk River's offense may look archaic on the surface. You know, Lakeville South, we run the power T as well. When you really get to experience it in person and see all the fine details and all the different moving parts that make everything work and how the system is set up, it's just like one of the most beautiful things ever. Like, compare it to a team like Prior Lake that just kind of calls plays without setting them up. And it's just like, almost like I said, a college football, like 26 type playbook. Elk River does everything with intention. They even had an RPO in their playbook last season, which was awesome.
No, they didn't.
If you want to go and watch the state title game again, the first 2-point conversion they did against Alexandria was an RPO.
Okay, it was like okay, I got you. I think I do remember that one. I just thought, like traditional RPO, like we think of it now, is
quarterback. It wasn't a quarterback RPO.
Right. It was a running back RPO, which I know Sauk Rapids-Rice does a little bit, and we'll get to them a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, interesting stuff. I think definitely a strong contender. And that's not even a question. Like, some teams you think about, like, do they make it to the contender category? I think that's not a question with this team. Like, they are bona fide in the contender category. Now it's just, how is it going to shake out for them to get there and hold the trophy out back to back? You mentioned Levi Harris. I think he committed to South Dakota just recently. And a quarterback that plays both ways and is also really good on the defensive side of the ball as well. Yeah, I think, man, Elk River, sometimes boring to watch if you're not looking schematically if you're just kind of looking at it through like a wide perspective. But if you really get into the nitty-gritty details of how the plays look similar and what they do to really put the defense in such a bind, I think you really you get an appreciation for this offense, other than, oh, this is a boring offense that only runs the ball, because I'm a suspect. I'm a suspect of that kind of perspective. But the thing is, Elk River scores the ball. Some offenses, they just pound the rock and they score 7 to 14 points consistently. Elk River's going up and they're scoring, like they're putting up crooked numbers in weeks. So it's not like their offense their offense is very effective, but just not in a traditional 2025 sense of how you see most offenses.
It's all about the blocking schemes, man.
Yards.
If you look at like how I think you like when you did your play breakdown, like they account for guys deep. Like, hey, we're gonna make sure we block the safeties. Whereas most teams are like, oh,
the
we want to
tight
get our
end's
running
gonna
back.
whiff on the defensive end and go get the safety. Like what
Yeah,
offense? What offense is doing that?
There's no point in blocking an NPC that's never going to make the play anyway.
Right.
The power T is very focused on who are the key players that could stop where we want the ball to go, get them out of the equation. So and just it sets everything up so beautifully. But yeah, like I said, they're one of my state title favorites. I said Chan was my favorite, but Elk River might be their competitor. Actually, you know what? I got two more things I want to ask you about Elk River. So one, you went to that Andover game last season. Andover's in 6A now. Elk River just lost their arch rival. Who's their new rival?
I think I don't know. Is it a time will tell case? Is it easy to do in Alexandria? Like, let's get that started because you guys played each other in the state title game. Like, that's a week 4 game that I'm sure Alexandria definitely thinks is a rivalry. But Elk River's probably not thinking about it because they won. So there's no real and I'm sure that they don't like each other. But if you were to poll Elk River's locker room, I'm sure the disdain for Alexandria would not be as much if you go to poll Alexandria's locker room and you'd be like, how much do you guys hate Elk River? Alexandria would have way more hatred towards Elk River just based on how the championship game went. So I think it's got the early seedings of a rivalry. If I was forced to pick, another just thing offensively, I think that's unique about their offense is a lot of formations and the spread. They help the defense decide where they're going to go, if that makes sense. So if you go trips to the field, you're kind of letting the defense align to more threats going to the field side. When these guys get in a double tight end formation, they put 3 running backs behind their quarterback, and there's no true strength to where you can't look at it and be like, they're going to go left, they're going to go right. They have to base even, they have to even out their defense to be able to cover the run to the left and the right. And then that also makes a big difference because when they do run to the left, you don't have as many numbers because you don't know they were going to run there. So you got 2 or 3 other players, which I think I kind of touched on, and that are just sitting on the backside, but they have to be there because they didn't know you were going to run it to the other side. I think that's one of the other things that I just noticed that really makes this Elk River offense chug.
Yeah, it is. No, and I think I messaged you earlier. This is the other thing I was going to ask you about with Elk River's offense, since we're on the topic. Elk River almost never has false starts ever in games because I don't want to spoil too much, but they have a very simple cadence. They're not downset hut. They just have one word that they use. And, that's kind of why it catches teams off guard. When you have a team come up to the huddle and it's just boom, or that's not the word they use, but, you say one word and then off they go. And here's power.
Maybe they should change it to that. Maybe the boom.
When I was watching through their games, I noticed in the state semifinal against Chanhassen, a team that Elk River averages less than 1 false start a game, but they oddly had 5 false start penalties specifically against Chanhassen. Why do you suppose that was?
Me not being at the game. I know defenses, and this, to get an edge or something, defenses, they tend to use, sometimes it's outright blatant, you're trying to do whatever the quarterback's doing. So whatever the cadence is, linebackers or defensive tackles go, or does it go? Or whatever the cadence is. And you're a lineman, you're not really looking at the ball. You're thinking about what your assignment is, and you hear that from the opposite side of the formation, and it's in the general vicinity of the quarterback, and you just go. Also, I don't know how much noise plays a factor in that as well. If it gets, I bet it gets louder in there than it does at high school games, and the noise becomes a little bit more of a factor. And also sometimes
penalties have they had? I mean, think about how frequently the Elks are at US Bank Stadium.
Exactly.
How many times they've won there. Are they not used to that by this point?
Exactly. Well, sometimes also it is a point of maybe it's not blatant, like you're trying to replicate, but and I can't think exactly, but some defenses have like the shift or move and they do it really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also um some like there's some sort of strategy that goes into it. That's a game plan to try to just make the offensive line that get off the ball really quick, like this Elk River uh, offensive line does, to just like make them hesitate a little bit to that cadence that they're listening for the quarterback, and it can also get them a little bit jumpy when you go move or like go. It can you're tense when you're playing, and just those like little things can really throw you off your rhythm. So it's not like diving and like going in there with like a magnifying glass, because I bet you could probably diagnose it if you could go and
I did.
You did? What was it?
I mean, you're spot on. Chanhassen did figure out what Elk River's one-word cadence was, and they shouted it out, and they got him to jump 5 times in that game. And like I said, the officials couldn't tell it's a penalty. Like, you're right. Normally that is a penalty if the defense says down, set, hut, something like that. Like right away, the officials are on it. But Elk River doesn't use down, set, hut. So how would an official know what to listen for or anything? But in the 5 times that Elk River jumped off or had a false start, the drives in the first quarter, 6 minutes and 40 seconds in, tight end jumped, outside backer mirrored the cadence, immediate turnover on downs. Chanhassen turns around and scores. Then in the third quarter, outside backers got him to jump again, led to a fumble. Fourth quarter happened 3 separate times. The first time it happened, Elk River shrugged it off and got a touchdown. But the next 2, which were at the very end of the game, it's a 2-point game. Left guard jumps, turnover on downs. Chan goes down. Now it's 21-19. Elk River has a chance to close the game out after that, but they got the tight end to jump yet again by shouting out Elk River's cadence. And now all of a sudden, Chanhassen gets the ball back for a final play. So, I mean, it definitely had an impact on that game and made it, potentially closer than what it was. I'm just throwing fuel on the Chanhassen-Elk River rivalry. I think it's going to be the state title game this year. And I think if you want to talk about 2 teams that might not like each other that much in 5A, I think Elk River might hate Chanhassen a little bit more than they hate Alexandria. So I'm all for that rivalry, man. Let's get this. I know we still have to play a whole bunch of games, but let's get to this Elk River Chanhassen state title game. I'm all for it. I know Coach Cross, one of my buddies, he's the DC at Elk River. He's really done a whole lot to overhaul their defense and get them back on track. Obviously, their offense needs no introduction. I'm just excited to see these 2 teams match up. Hopefully,
yeah. It should be fun. That's for sure. Yeah, I'm not gonna make a pick yet on who. Like I think my rankings will come out, and that'll kind of tell you guys who I think is going to be like my preseason favorite. But I think it's kind of like a toss up in 5A, and I think that can be like the case with a lot of classes. And I think that's what's going to make this year interesting. Like when you look at 6A. At least I think Maple Grove and Minnetonka, and I think like if I had to pick one of them, it's going to be like a really hard decision. And the same thing, like Elk River, Chanhassen, like if you want to single those teams out, be like, man, who's gonna like? There's so many factors that go into it, and that's why usually guessing it, you're going to be wrong. But
yeah.
Interesting nonetheless. Let's get to the player that I want to watch out for. That's Carson Clefman, running back, linebacker, class of 2027. So he was a sophomore last season, and he made quite the impact as a sophomore. Don't blink defenses, because as soon as you do it, he's taking a handoff and he's just like gutted right through your defense, and he's already in the end zone, all over the field defensively. Just like there's a couple plays on his huddle where like they run a speed option to his side, and the speed option is the quarterback runs at like the outside linebacker, the defensive end, and reads him and then pitches it if like the guy committed to get the quarterback. And there's a couple times when the quarterback reads a pitch and Clefman takes the quarterback and then also goes with the pitch and tackles the running back as well.
He did
and
that
that's
against
just like
Chanhassen.
stuff that you don't see you can tell he's a special player by his ability to just make that happen, and that's not even taken into consideration like what he can do with the ball in his hands, and all that other stuff. I think Prep Red Zone had him as 19 in their class of 2027 rankings, but I feel like it's a little low. I feel like, and I think he is the second best athlete in that class as they were ranking him. But I think he might be the number one athlete, because I think in looking at his Twitter, he had some 7-on-7 clips that if you think this guy can only run the football, you're mistaken. Just because he's in Elk River and they run the football a lot doesn't mean he can't go out there and run routes and catch footballs, because he had some one-on-one reps at a college camp that just like one of the catches was super impressive, and one of the other routes he got the dude just like running the other way. It was impressive stuff. So not just a product of his environment in Elk River. This guy would be successful wherever he's going to go in. He is an impressive football player.
Definitely, yeah. I watched him play because I was watching that state semi, them versus Chanhassen back, and he had some awesome plays. I mean, he's just dragging dudes for extra yards. Had some interesting reactions to some of those Chanhassen false start penalties. Yeah, so if you want, you can ask him about that. I'm sure he'll have quite a few things to say. But no, absolutely fantastic athlete, and I mean, you get 2 more years of him if you're Elk River. That's fantastic. They're just loaded over there, man. And, thinking about the whole power T and kids like this, I don't get why so many 5A teams still play their base like defenses against the power T. Like when I was watching the Chanhassen game, like sure, they're doing whatever to get them to jump like and get false start penalties, but they're just playing a base 3-4 defense against a power team. I'm just like, do you really need 4 DBs on the field against a team with 0 wide receivers? And I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. I'd probably.
Well, it's a tough thing when you run into Elk River is such a unique offense, and not only is it unique, but like they run it better than anybody by a lot. So it's not only like you're going into it and you're just playing a unique average offense that you can probably get away with running like your own stuff, but you're running a unique offense that is one of the most producing offenses in the state's history, that's just like a whole nother beast. And you can try to adjust your defense to go down to it, but at the same time, then, like you're also changing up a lot. And that's also a lot to put high school kids through in only a week to prepare for it.
Yep.
And now if your season is on the line, you got to try and do something. But I think my guess is Elk River is one of those teams where they force teams to go in the locker room at halftime and be like, this isn't working. We got to go on a whiteboard and we got to just like start writing stuff, and we just got to like try stuff, because clearly what you guys see is not working. So Elk River is kind of one of those teams that make, the opposing coaches lose hair. But yeah, Elk River, a very good team. Carson Cleffman, Levi Harris, just a couple of players that are not great, but they got a lot of them for sure. Hopping over to Monticello, the Magic. I just produced a Big Ten defensive back, and Luke Emmerich. I don't know if you've seen any of his stuff on his social media, but he's been making some plays this spring for Wisconsin. And I think he had to early enroll to be in like spring practices there, but he had a few highlights, and there's probably more if I were to dig, and those are the only ones that made social media. But possibly not a Coy Parrish, but another great defensive back in the Big Ten. Monticello is producing. It's still spring practice, true freshman, but something to look out for. That's the first thing when I think of Monticello. But coming off a good season, I got to see Monticello and a few 1 scrimmage and 1 7-on-7. I think they're going to be right around. I don't think there's going to be too much of a drop off before like what it was 8-3 last season. What are your thoughts on Monticello?
Yeah, I think they're going to be another solid team. I was trying to figure out what offense they stick to these days because I've seen a lot of spread stuff and a lot of their 7-on-7 looks like they do spread. But then when I found some film from 2 years ago, they were doing like almost Elk River Power T. They'd have 3 backs, 1 tight end, and another receiver split out wide. And I'm like, I haven't seen that before in Monticello. But no, I think they're still going to be very, very good. They got a solid 3-4 defense. They're well coached. I mean, they got a nuclear power plant up there in Monticello. If they ever get into trouble, just throw some fuel rods at your kids, get them to grow a few extra inches in between weeks, and there you go. Now all of a sudden you're beefed up. You can take on Elk River.
Great enough. Yeah.
In all seriousness, they're good.
Yeah, I think Monticello is set for a good year. They have some talent graduating, but I think when we talk about their offense, I think it might be more, and I could be totally wrong, but I think they can do a little bit of both, and they do a little bit of both good. Like some teams do a lot and do everything under average. But I think this is one of the teams that can balance like doing multiple things and having different identities at different times. I think their true identity is running the football, at least from where I see it, and that's where Cale Holthouse comes in. 1,000-yard rusher, 14 TDs in his sophomore season, breaks a lot of tackles. One of the things that I have on him was, I don't know if you've played Madden or viewers have played Madden, but they added this new thing called an X Factor ability, and your guy kind of turns into a beast once you like activate your X Factor. Like he runs through tackles, he is basically unstoppable, and I think that's kind of a little bit of what I saw from Cale. And only a sophomore last season, I think there's a lot of room to grow. Not only just like physically he's going to mature and get bigger and stronger, but I think just the stats of being 1,000-yard rusher, like knock on wood, barring any like injuries or anything that's going to take him out for like a lot of time. I think this guy's a special talent. I think they got, he's also a good blocker too. He's got some film of him lead blocking, and if he's not running the ball, I want to be a running back behind him, because just like boom, clears the path for you. Interesting guy to watch. Yeah,
those are some great stats for only a sophomore, and they had a pretty decent schedule last season too. So I mean, those are real impressive numbers. Maybe he has been taking some of them uranium rods from the nuclear power plant, but hey, those are awesome stats, man. We just talked about Elk River a whole bunch and gave them a ton of praise. I would not be surprised if Monticello gave Elk River a bit of a challenge for the Section 7 title this season. Elk River will be awesome, but they matched up in the state quarterfinal last season, right? And I think Elk River only beat them by 7 points. It was like 35-28.
Yep. 36-29. You were so
close.
far up. But the only reason I said that is because I had it pulled up right here. So I wasn't trying to correct it, because that is impressive that you can remember it basically to the point. But yeah, they definitely gave Elk River a run, and now can they replenish a little bit of the talent and like the Luke Emmerich that they lost? Not only him, but a couple more guys. But definitely, if somebody's going to be a challenger to Elk River near them, I think Monticello would be a good candidate to point at as the likely suspect.
There we go. If they want to make state, they got to go through the Elks twice. So we'll see if they got it.
Don't want to go through Elk territory twice, but if you have to, you got to try.
You got to do what you got to do.
St. Francis coming in here. A team that I think has the potential to not surprise people, but be a spoiler to some teams that are taking St. Francis as an easy W. What are your thoughts on St. Francis?
Aside from Elk River, I think St. Francis is also happy that Andover is up in 6A, because I feel like St. Francis, like you said, has always been kind of a sleeper team up there, but they've always been stuck in Section 7. So it's always, it's kind of an all-out war between Andover and Elk River, and St. Francis is just like chilling in the background, like, hey, can I get involved? And then one of those two just like brushes them to the side, and they go back to punching each other. I'm pretty sure they've overhauled their offense recently. I think like in 2020, maybe 2021, they were still doing like pro I formation stuff. I think they've got a good quarterback that can throw the ball now, so they're starting to spread it out a little bit more.
Oh, we'll talk about him. We
will talk about okay, so they do have a good quarterback. The only like question mark with me still is they do still run an old 4-3 defense. Just looking at that schedule, like Irondale, maybe more of an I guess like they don't really see too many spread teams, just Monticello, Robbinsdale Cooper, St. Louis Park, and maybe New Prague, depending on what they do. That's kind of a weird matchup week 2. But I think they could easily go, at the very least, I think they can muscle out 4-4, take on New Prague, Sartell, especially the back half of the season. I could easily see them sweeping the back half of their schedule.
Yeah, once you take a look at the back half, I put these together and I don't really like analyze the schedule a ton, but when you do look at those 4 games, Sartell, Cambridge, even Irondale, St. Louis Park is probably like the team that has the most wins in past seasons that they have to play. So yeah, I could see them. Come on, St. Francis, let's go 4-4 here.
They beat New Prague. That's 5-3.
Exactly. I think that's an easy, not an easy, but I would say an easy goal to set for them for improvement. It's not like a daunting task to improve from their 3-7 record. I'm not sure if Tanner Rothbauer was quarterback when they went 1-8 in the 2023 season. That would have made him a sophomore. They don't have any like stats, or I wasn't able to see anything. But I know last year, again, they went 3-7. Here's their starting quarterback. My initial impressions was like he's a great player stuck on a below average team. And sometimes that happens in high school football. I think he recently committed to UMD. So I think that kind of shows a little bit of like the outside perspective of how people are viewing this guy. And I think I would tend to agree with that. I didn't even know that he committed to UMD until like a couple days ago. I was kind of on the Rothbauer train a little bit before that. So, and then the Bulldogs came in, probably have been recruiting him for, I don't know, a while, and he decided to commit there. So he'll be playing in Duluth for his collegiate career, but still got to play his senior year in high school. And I think just digging into him as a player, he's one of the only quarterbacks, not only in like 5A, but just like in the state that throws with like really good anticipation. And I don't know if you can really like, if quarterbacks can understand it, but like a receiver can be open, but they can look covered. And some quarterbacks don't want to pull the trigger, especially high school quarterbacks, in like throwing in the windows. You see it more of like a college level person where they start to get comfortable with throwing in the tight windows and fitting it into windows where the receiver wasn't open, but now he is open. Like an easy way to say it is the quarterback's throwing the football when the receiver's covered, so it can get to the receiver when he's not covered. And this dude does a spectacular job at doing that. Also, like an underrated athlete, he's not only can he scramble, but he also has some runs where it's like, dang, like that dude's pretty fast for being, as good of a pocket passer as he shows on tape. And plus arm talent. I think he's got a really good arm and can throw off platform in the pocket. Doesn't really matter. He's versatile in the way that he can get the ball out. And I think his first play on huddle is just like a 55, 60-yard just bucket drop to one of his receivers. So I think Tanner Rothbauer and these St. Francis Saints these guys, they got a good quarterback in Rothbauer, but they also can be a potential dangerous team to not only, I know we talked about the back half of the schedule being opening up, but okay, let's give it to Elk River because I think that's kind of
history tells us how that's going to go.
I don't think they're going to beat Elk River, but a Cooper team or a Monticello team, I think they could cause some issues for one of those teams, especially if they look at it like a St. Francis team that went 1-8 in 2023 and that went 3-7 last year. I think they might be in for a decent surprise. Not totally on the St. Francis train because I don't think they're going to make much playoff noise just because I think there's kind of levels to this, but like I think they can definitely be a team that's going to give teams problems.
For sure, yeah. I love what you were saying about the quarterback too. Like being whenever you're trying to shoot at a moving target, you got to lead and aim at where the target's going to be, not where it's at. And it sounds like Tanner Rothbauer is really great at that. Like I was watching a clip, I think it was from 612 Quarterbacks. They posted a clip of JJ McCarthy throwing a ball to Jordan Addison. He's got the ball out before Addison even breaks out on the route, and it just like lands perfectly to where he was going to be. And I'm like, oh, that's just so beautiful to see. So yeah, you're spot on.
That anticipation is hard to come by, especially for like we can have good high school quarterbacks and some offenses just like get their guys into like wide open positions where the quarterback just has to make like a wide open thrower, not throw with like much anticipation. But I think, man, he's going to be definitely a fun quarterback to watch and keep an eye out for this guy in the fall. Moving on to Cambridge-Isanti, the Blue Jackets, 0-9 last season, not able to get a W. They do got a couple really good players on their roster, but obviously didn't turn out to much of any success last season. What are your thoughts on the Blue Jackets?
I don't think they're going to go 0-9 again, so they got that going for them.
Nice.
Do they have an offensive identity anymore? Because I know that they got 3-4 defense. They got that pretty figured out. But like I've seen spread stuff that are in shotgun. They're doing some kind of like 12 personnel. It almost looks like YZ's offense, like with GH counter and inside-outside zone, just without the RPOs slapped into it. A lot more play action. I'm like, it's kind of an interesting take. But I don't know. I think they should be able to compete. And you know what's funny about them being 0-9? Even though they didn't win a game last season, they still got a higher seed in their playoff section than Duluth East, who I'm sure we'll talk about coming up here. But no, I think Cambridge-Isanti should be able to string together some wins here. You got definitely some winnable games in the back half of your season. They got a pretty favorable matchup with Sartell week 1 and an interesting clash with, is that Chisago Lakes week 2?
Yes, that is Chisago Lakes.
Another 5A, 4A crossover game. I'm all for that. That'll be a fun one. Chisago Lakes, I think, is a flex bone triple option team. They like to run the football, so plenty of opportunity for Cambridge-Isanti to get physical with other. Is it E-Santi or I-Santi?
I-Santi.
Okay, I'm not from Minnesota. I apologize. I used to call Matamidi Matamidi because I had no idea how to pronounce it.
Matamidi.
Yeah. I was a lot of people gave me some crap when I first said that. And I was like, huh? So
that is great.
But no, the Blue Jackets, I definitely see, I'm going to give I can see them beating Sartell. I could see them giving Chisago Lakes a solid game and maybe Irondale. I could see an easy 3. Well, not easy, but, doable 2 to 4 wins this season.
Yeah. Okay. I know you're trying to figure out, and I get stats aren't the whole thing, but this is kind of like, I don't know. A comp would be Coon Rapids, like last season, because I believe in Coon Rapids this season. But
I did get a sneak peek at your rankings. I know you believe in Coon Rapids this season.
How bad Coon Rapids was last season is kind of like what Cambridge was. If these stats are right, like this is 78 yards passing per game and only 53 rushing yards per game. Like that's pretty brutal.
Yikes.
So, and maybe those are wrong. Maybe they were better than that, but their record doesn't say they were much better than that, right?
No, I saw the beginning of their Andover game. They had more fumbles and blocked punts than they had snaps of offense in the first quarter. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be watching much more of this.
So the good news is with these teams that are so bad the previous season before, there's only one way up, and you start out with a good winnable game to kind of change the direction of where your team was going last season. And they have an Irondale game on their schedule. I think those are 2 games to see as winnable games for Cambridge-Isanti. Gus Knowlton, defensive lineman for Cambridge. I got to see this dude up close at a Cambridge-Isanti Anoka joint practice.
That's right.
And he was taking some Anoka linemen to the woodshed of just this dude. He's like 6'3", 250, but think I don't know. Just
he doesn't have much of a belly on him in that picture. That's
totally
a
built
body weight.
Strong, super impressive. I could have looked at him and been like, you're a good player without seeing him play. And he was. It took a little digging to find him. But bull rush, and he's not quick enough to be like a outside backer in like a 3-4 scheme. I would say I wouldn't say that would be like his strong suit. The most outside he would be in like a 4-3 system, but like a 3-4 defensive end I think is probably like one of his stronger positions. Then he can bump inside and probably play a nose tackle really good in the 3 technique and all that, all the inside stuff well. But I think as a 4-3 end is probably like the maximum that he can go out as far as like trying to get real good production and seeing them. But yeah, dude, a stud, impressive guy to watch. I think Knox and Andrews is also a really good player for Cambridge-Isanti. I think he's class at 27 or 28 too. So a young dude, one of the best athletes in his class. I wanted to give Gus the shine because I bet Knox's time will come probably next year, when we preview Cambridge-Isanti, because he's got a couple years ahead of him. But I also did want to mention the name of a really good player also for this Cambridge-Isanti team. So, hey, they got a good athlete that's going to be, roaming anywhere in the backfield. I don't know if he's going to play receiver, but they also got a good defensive lineman. And I don't know if he'll play any offensive line, but definitely capable of playing anywhere on the offensive line and being a beast. I think he's committed to Jamestown recently. So, yeah, really good dude. And hopefully the Blue Jackets can get 2 wins at least. That's my goal, my personal goal for Cambridge-Isanti.
There we go. Put Mr. Knowlton at nose guard when you play Elk River.
Yeah, let him try to feast. Here we go. The aforementioned Duluth East. They got brought up a little bit.
They have a 5A game. They play a 5A team. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and continue, Caleb. I'm in shock here.
I don't have a ton on this Duluth East team. Not really a team that I'm super familiar with. I know that we've talked about them a little bit of being, a team that plays in lower classes because geography wise, they are super far away from anybody else that plays in 5A. But give me some thoughts on a Duluth East Greyhound team. What do you think?
Yeah, so as you mentioned earlier, I was surprised they're playing Brainerd because normally their schedule is almost identical to how it was the last few cycles. Just swap Brainerd with Esco. And you mentioned Coy Perrick earlier. We know how that kind of goes when you got him going against Duluth East. But I believe Duluth East actually got a new head coach last season. I think he's a St. Olaf guy. He's got them running a wing T triple option now instead of their old spread offense. I think they're still a 4-4 defense. But yeah, when I was going through the words of what I was going to say about all these teams, I was like, well, it seems like they're starting to build things back up. They're the biggest school up there in Duluth. Like obviously all the teams around you, like Hermantown, Denfeld, Cloquet, like they're all lower classes. They're all 4A. You factor in like a Hibbing or like aforementioned Esco, Proctor. Those are all 3A teams. Like the closest 5A team to them might be
North
Brainerd.
Branch?
It could be. Well,
Is
no,
North Branch
they're
4A?
4. Yeah, North Branch is 4A. I mean, like, so yeah. But then, like, again, at the same time, like, to play a Grand Rapids or a North Branch, you're already traveling just over 2 hours. So, like, if you're accustomed to having to travel at that point, why not just play more 5A games? Like, think about poor Moorhead. I mean, they got to travel all over the state for everything. Right. This year, they're going to be traveling 4 hours one way. Other teams like Maple Grove are going to be traveling 3 or 4 hours to play them. So it's like, if Moorhead can do it, why can't Duluth East do it too? But I guess there's probably yeah, and there's probably a bit of a talent difference between a Duluth East versus a Moorhead. I don't think they've got a Jet Feeney, a David Mack, or a Tay Rich, or Coach Feeney for that matter. But I was watching some interviews with their head coach. It seems like he's a really good guy, knows what he's doing. It wouldn't be surprised if he got the Greyhounds playing better and better these next few seasons. Definitely want to see him win some of these in-city games like Hermantown, Denfeld, and Cloquet. Those are big ones you got to take on, and you got to win those games.
Got to win them. We'll see if Duluth East can make a little something happen. Let's go to Alexandria. The Cardinals coming off a really good season last year. They got some really good playmakers for them leaving. Give me your initial impressions, your thoughts. Alexandria, a pretty high profile team in 5A.
Oh yeah, these last 2 seasons, they've been, next to unstoppable. The only reason I don't want to say the only reason, but they ended up losing to Elk River because Elk River had a strategy of keeping Chase Thompson on the bench, dominating time possession. And then the year before that, you happened to I think it was they collapsed late in the 4th quarter to St. Thomas Academy in the state semis. I want to say Savion Hart just popped off in the 4th quarter. So, they were like,
fact check you, but I'll take your word for it.
There we go. Definitely. Someone will let us know in the comments. Like, Coach Lance is wrong. But no, so they were right there, and they've gone through some of the best teams. Like looking at their 2023 roster, they've gone through Moorhead, they went through Elk River, Chaska, Monticello, and then Rogers when they were still pretty solid. And then even in 2024, their only 2 losses in the regular season were to Elk River, who was in the state title game and ended up winning the state title, and at the time undefeated Moorhead team, who they then came back and beat in the section final. And can I also just say it's so sad that both Moorhead and Alexandria couldn't make it to the state playoffs? Like, oh, what a bummer.
Man. Yeah, it was quite the game. And yeah, that very easily could have been like Barn and Elk River won a really good state game, possibly, if they weren't like matched up in the same section and stuff like that. So let's get on to a player to watch for Alexandria, Evan Zabel. This guy's a we think when we think a pass and attack, we think quarterback, we think receivers, but also the thing that needs to be there in the pass attack is your left tackle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was a beast. And a lot of offensive linemen, especially in high school, are really good run blockers, and they're really good going downhill. But when they get to kick stepping it back and catching an edge rusher coming off the edge, they can get a little overwhelmed and not be as good in the pass. But I think that's like the opposite. I think this dude is not that he's weak in the run, but I think he's really strong in both. And I think that's really unique. And I think probably growing up with Chase Thompson passing a ton probably helped that development of his like pass setting and stuff like that. Of not many linemen can get pancakes on pass blocks, but he
not
can.
Easy to do.
And 6'4", 280. I think he's I don't know if he's committed to North Dakota or I'll take that part out if he's not. But I know that he was, I want to say he was committed to somewhere to play college football. And I mean, it makes sense because this dude's a beast. There's going to be colleges. Like if you or me were a college recruiter, this would be definitely somebody that we wanted on our
Oh, yeah.
team, especially protecting whoever we have as the quarterback. A beast to say that.
Yeah.
UND is where he's committed.
Perfect. So, all right, you know what? We talked about how Elk River lost their biggest rival in Andover. Alexandria is probably celebrating now. You don't have to play Moorhead anymore. I don't want to say they have an easy path to the state title, or at least to the state playoffs, but I don't know that anyone else in Section 8 is going to give them too much trouble. Who's their new rival? Who are the Cardinals going to beef with now that you don't have the Spuds?
I mean, is
it Bemidji?
Do we have to keep it in the section? I think we can have some out of section beefs.
All right, let me hear them.
Hey, watch out for a Sauk Rapids-Rice. We'll get to them, but Bemidji, Sauk Rapids, I think like probably one of them will emerge, whether it's Sauk Rapids, Brainerd, or Bemidji. I think one of them, and we'll get to talking about those. I think one of them it's probably not, and I don't want to set it up that way. But Sartell coming off a rough year, not only last season but the year before that. These Sartell's probably not going to rival Alexandria, based on where they are. But that doesn't mean that they don't have some winnable games on their schedule, like a Cambridge-Isanti. We talked about Cambridge-Isanti being like having a good week one game where you don't really know who's going to win. I'm not too familiar on St. Cloud Tech, but that could also be another one I see Sartell having a chance in. And then, like, who knows in your section games? I think, Brainerd, Bemidji, I think those guys are formidable to be like, that's going to be a tough win. Or you'd have a tough time at least selling me that Sartell is going to beat them. What are your thoughts on a little Sartell Saber action?
I got a lot of thoughts on Sartell.
Oh,
so Sartell's head coach actually played with Lakeville South's defensive coordinator in college at St. Cloud State. So we stay in touch pretty frequently. And you're going to love this, cool. Caleb. He actually sent us some clips of their camp up at UMD a few weeks ago. So he's like, hey, your DC wanted some clips because we just scrimmaged Egan. And I know how much you love Egan's offense. Yep. And Sartell runs the exact same.
Oh, yeah, I'm aware. Yes, I'm aware.
If you want, Caleb, I got clips of 2 triple option teams going back and forth on the grass field and UMD if you want to watch.
I think you can keep those to yourself. I think I'll be fine.
Midline.
Hey, I wanted to go up to one of those UMD camps, but I wasn't able to get up there with my work schedule. But yeah, I was aware Sartell did run very similar shades to Egan, and Peyton Allen is one of the dudes on this team, and committed to St. Thomas, 6'7", 205, like a beast of a man. Plays tight end, plays defensive end, class of 2026. When you play tight end in this system, it's really only blocking. He's a glorified right or left tackle. And, he does what he can do in like the limited role. Now, I have no idea, not to say a limited role, but just like the schematic fit that he has as tight end. I don't know, and wasn't able to do a ton of research on like if this dude has like ball skills that would be or he's talented with the ball in his hands, anything like that, to being like, is there an opportunity where a Sartell team that isn't doing much to maybe they can use this guy in a little bit of a different way? I mean, 6'7", 205. I wouldn't want to tackle that man. Maybe find a way to give him the ball and see how. Now, the coaches are going to know way more than me about like whatever I'm talking about. So maybe there isn't a reason. Maybe there's a good reason why he's a tight end, and maybe they need a good blocker there, and that's what he's there to do. So all those like high school like factors can come into like one of your best players playing tight end in a scheme where the tight end doesn't really get the ball, but not only offensively, but a defensive end and eats blocks for breakfast. Just good luck trying to block a 6'7", 205 guy that can really move as well. Impressive stuff on a team that's trying to find light at the end of a dark tunnel.
Definitely. I think they're still getting used to that flexbone system. Last year was the first year they implemented it. Like, you think of a team like Shakopee who can pass the ball, you have your tight end block, you set up your inside-outside veer, and then you use that to set up your waggle passes. So if Sartell can figure out how to set up waggle, get this man the ball at that second level, that's really where teams struggle to cover that kind of bootleg off your rocket toss. So if Sartell can get that going, maybe they get some stuff going. We'll see. I got to throw some shade at Sartell really fast because we went to a clinic with a bunch of those guys down in Atlanta.
All right.
And they were talking, and I think their defense is going to be a lot better because we talked about their defense, and like the speaker, whatever, was like, so what gives you issues on your defense? And me, I'm the super nerd. I've got all their film that they live streamed on YouTube last season pulled up. I'm like, oh, against Rodgers, you struggled with speed option against the backside of 3-by-1 formations. And these guys just turn around like, who's this psychopath back here that knows our film? But funny enough, after that trip, all of a sudden, all of Sartell's varsity football film was wiped from their YouTube channel. So I guess I shot myself in the foot on that one. Sorry, other 5A teams, you can no longer see Sartell's film on YouTube. I apologize for that.
They're not letting you do a 7-hour live stream of them breaking down their film. They're like,
Coach Lance is not going to break down our film.
That's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. I love those guys, though.
All right. Sauk Rapids-Rice. I kind of referred to them as a team, I think 2021 to 2023, just above 500. And I think they look good in the scrimmages that I got to see at St. John's. Like, they gave Cretan problems, and I think Cretan's a really good team going to be this year. And I think they were one of the better teams at the St. John's scrimmage from me bouncing around and looking at everything. I think they're going to be a formidable team. The record's kind of, if you want to go through it and pick where wins are going to be, you're going to start with like Cambridge, you're going to start with Sartell. And then it kind of gets like a little rough to really pick out wins. And I think this whole, I group Sauk Rapids, Brainerd, and Bemidji into a group of three where if they play each other, at least preseason wise, it's like a coin flip of who's going to win. So like 4-3-ish wins is what I pick, but I think this could be a team that we look at the end of the season. And I think it's the case with some of these teams of their record's going to be below what they're going to give their playoff opponent, if that makes sense. But I think like it could be a team that loses a lot of regular season close games as well in the regular season. And like I talked about, give somebody troubles in the first round of the playoffs.
For sure. And those teams that will play in the playoffs are their weeks 3 through 6 opponents. You mentioned like maybe a Sartell, a Brainerd, or a Bemidji could be a flip of a coin on some. Well, maybe not Sartell, but as you said, Brainerd or Bemidji could be a coin flip for some of those games. You're going to have to see them again in the playoffs. I don't know how they stack up with Monticello, Elk River, Alexandria, kind of top tier talent in 5A, but I think they could, like you said, easily squeak out 3 or 4 wins. I'm really curious about that Waconia game week 8. That just seems like such a strange 5A clash, like two teams that know next to nothing about each other and are so far away. And that's almost like if you had like Rochester Mayo playing Alexandria. It'd be so strange.
Yeah. Definitely interesting. I think a player to watch for here is Clayton Handeland, class of 2026, nearly 50 tackles last season, 7 TFLs, 1 interception. A disruptor as a linebacker is a good way to put at least what I saw from film wise. and a sure tackler at that. I think, don't ask Sartell who's stopping the pitch guy, because it seemed like a lot of the time it was this guy, and like a couple clips that I can remember off the top of my head of he probably is in Sartell's nightmares, and hopefully for Sauk Rapids he can duplicate that. I think he's going to have more than 50 tackles this season, more than 7 TFLs. I think the arrow in stock is pointing up for Clayton Handeland. And also Connor Winkleman was also another guy that is a dude on the Sauk Rapids-Rice team that I think is going to be a key piece in the Sauk Rapids-Rice if they do want to battle to that 500 or so record, which I think, like, if Sauk Rapids is 500 this season, I think it's a really good thing for them, because their schedule is not a joke this season.
Nope, they definitely have a tough lineup, and good that they've got a solid linebacker and a 3-4 defense. It's awesome for the Storm. What did their offense look like when you saw them at 7-on-7? Are they doing spread stuff nowadays?
Very Elk River-ish.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they're bouncing around between systems. Who knows what we're going to see from the Storm's offense?
I mean, we talk about the Elk River RPO. I saw the Elk River RPO being run in the Storm scrimmage by them.
Oh, goodness.
So, yeah, I'm not familiar with what Sauk Rapids-Rice has run in the past, but it seemed like they were doing a good job of it and had a good grasp. Like I said, they were one of the better teams at that St. John's camp running what they were doing. So
for sure.
Yeah.
I like seem pretty well coached too.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see. Now we're gonna move on to the other one of the other teams I kind of lump into the Sauk Rapids-Rice category, and the Brainerd Warriors, another team that I got to watch it. They were at the Bemidji State High School camp. So I got to, actually, I think they were at that's Bemidji. Brainerd was at the St. John's camp. They were at one of them. I don't remember which one because they kind of blend together, but I remember the Warriors were at one of them. And, I think a 5-5 season, like I look at it again, their schedule, Buffalo, winnable, Duluth East, winnable, Sauk Rapids-Rice, coin flip, Sartell, winnable. So, like, I think right around like that 500 marker is kind of what should be their goal.
Yeah, I could definitely see them doing that. They kind of had a breakout in 2023 because, this is another team where record may not tell the whole story, because in 2021 and 2022, actually, no, it was weird because they were a 6A team for the 21-22 cycle, but they still played a 5A schedule for those years. But then I think 2022 in the first round of the playoffs, they had to go to Stillwater because they were an automatic 8th seed, which is kind of crazy. You have a 5-3 Brainerd team as an 8th seed. And I think they gave the Ponies a pretty solid game. That's when Shikenjansky was a senior, and that was a loaded Stillwater team. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know, man. The Brainerd Warriors are pretty solid on offense. They got a good, nice spread offense, good rushing attack. They can pass the ball, too. They got a lot of athletes. I think defense is where I kind of have question marks with them going forward.
Yeah. A player to watch for this Brainerd team is Jaden Barnum, running back. I think this is him. I was trying to get a good picture. I wanted the picture to be not grainy. So, in my Google search, I can't identify, like, totally 95% sure this is him. Agility and quickness on him is elite. I have that he doesn't need top end speed to be good, just because he is so quick, elusive, and navigating left and right very easily. He can just dump it down to his running back. He can catch it and then use his agility and quickness to get some yards from that play.
Definitely. You love seeing a kid like that. Also, weird matchup, Brainerd versus Matamidi of all teams. Matamidi had to travel quite a ways for that game.
Yeah, for sure. let's should we go on to Bemidji? Let's go on to Bemidji. The Lumberjacks. What trees are they going to chomp down in their schedule this season? What do you think?
Well, I know they're going to be chopping down your interest in watching their offense because we have yet another triple option flexbone team. Oh goodness,
that tree's going down.
There it goes. I never know what to make of Bemidji. Funny enough, looking at that 2020 season, I'm pretty sure one of those wins, they came down and they beat Edina in the Twin Cities in 2020. It was like a total random one-off game because opponents canceled. I'm like, someone can fact check me if I'm wrong, but I'm like 90% certain Bemidji came down to Edina and whooped the Hornets in 2020. But no, I mean, you can see they're pretty consistent, like middle of the pack out there in Section 8. On the bright side, like these other teams, you don't have to worry about Moorhead anymore. Alexandria lost Chase Thompson. They'll still be great, but you're missing a very big weapon. Brainerd will still be good. Sauk Rapids-Rice will be solid. And it's not like they've got easy out-of-conference games. They got a really strange one versus Grand Rapids week 2. And then obviously... Dude, okay. Now, how many flexbone teams they have? Grand Rapids is also a flexbone triple option. Sartell is. Bemidji is. That's going to be fast games done. I'm sure you're just itching at the bit to go to that Bemidji Sartell game week 7. That's. I don't know. Like when I just look at the schedule, I could easily see like a solid 4-4, 5-5 season again. Like obviously, I don't think they're going to be competing with Alexandria, Elk River, or Monticello, but they should beat teams like a Buffalo, a Grand Rapids is always good. I don't know how that's going to go. But like a Buffalo, a Sartell, Sauk Rapids-Rice, they should be right there. And then kind of like we talked about with Brainerd, that could be a flip of a coin. We'll see how that all kind of goes. I think they're a good physical team, but they're one of those teams that can't play from behind. If you get up on the Lumberjacks early, kind of like Moorhead has always done in the past, then they're just kind of sunk at that point. But if they can control time of possession, control the pace of the game, their opponents don't get ahead of them, they're going to win those close games almost every time.
Yeah, I think like the overarching theme that I take from this section is these three teams, like the three teams that we just did, Bemidji, Brainerd, and Sauk Rapids. Like, I think one of them, and again, this is a prediction, okay? One of them is going to perform like above expectations. So my thing would be like one of them is going to surprise and probably be like a little bit over 500. Okay, there's going to be one of these teams that's like 500, and then there's going to be one of the teams that like finishes below what my expectations are for them and finish like a little below 500. And it's kind of just a matter of them all being in the same section and going to be battling against each other. So like some of them are just bound to lose some games. So interesting. The Lumberjacks. We got Mason Church, offensive lineman, 2026. A really good puller, especially like to space. Linebackers, defensive backs don't want to see this guy coming around like the edge and hello. Blocks through the whistle, finishes blocks. Another man, it feels like offensive lineman, 6'6", 270, like. Dang, right?
That's exactly the kid you want to run behind in the triple option flex bone.
Exactly. Perfect. So I think he's going to be a really good player. I think they do have a good quarterback coming up, and I think he is younger. I could be wrong if I'm not. Hopefully he's listening and I can find out. But he was a player to maybe put on here, but I decided to go with Mason Church because I think that QB is going to have more years ahead of him where I'll be able to highlight him. But obviously Church being a senior this season, I wanted to get his name out there and let people see the body of work that he's done. But that kind of concludes our preview of 5A. Everybody down, all 43 teams.
Woo.
What are your I guess I don't want to make this too much longer, but were you willing to? I know you touched on your favorites for 5A, but just kind of like sum up 5A in a general sense. Touch
Sure.
on whatever you're comfortable with, I guess.
I can give you favorites. I can even lay out a speculative state tournament if you'd like to do that as well.
I mean, sure.
Let's do it. Perfect. So, I mean, I kind of touched on some of my favorites already. So, the way that the playoffs work for sections or classes 5A and below is different than 6A. We talked about that. There's 8 sections instead of 4, and only one team from each of those 8 sections makes it to the state tournament. So once you get to state, they basically split you up sections 1 through 4, and then sections 5 through 8. Sections 1 through 4 are the south sections. Sections 5 through 8 are the north sections. You have the number or whoever the top team is out of the north. So, like, for example, I think I picked Elk River from section 7, Alexandria section 8, Armstrong, I'll say section 6, and then we're going Jefferson out of section 5. So obviously Jefferson's probably not up to this par of those other 4 teams or the other 3 teams. So Jefferson would be the south 4th seed. Elk River, I'm picking to be one of my state favorites. So I'm thinking they're the top seeds. So you would have Jefferson play Elk River at a neutral site. And then that means we get an Armstrong Alexandria rematch. So that'd be on the south or on the north side. On the south side, Owatonna or Rochester Mayo, Caleb?
I'm a big Mayo fan.
All right, Coach Holcomb and the Spartans are taking it. So you got Rochester Mayo. I'm going to go Chanhassen out of Section 2. Mankato West, don't hate me for that. We'll say St. Thomas Academy should roll over Section 3, and then Cretin-Durham Hall out of Section 4. So my pick is Chan's going to be the top team out of there. I'm assuming Cretin probably isn't as good. They have an easier schedule than those other 2 teams. So Cretin probably would have to play Chanhassen in a neutral site game, and then you would have who are the other 2? Rochester Mayo playing St. Thomas Academy. And so
this would be like the quarterfinal.
So you got it. Yep, this would be the quarterfinal. Now, unlike 6A, when the 6A bracket is set, the bracket's set. You don't change the order of like, a high seed plays a low seed or whatever. It's just you follow the bracket, and that's the path you take to the state tournament.
Yep.
That's not the case with these lower classifications. So in the second round, which is the state semis at US Bank Stadium, the highest remaining seed from the north, those 4 sections, plays the lowest remaining seed from the south, which would be sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's like, I'm assuming Elk River is going to beat Bloomington Jefferson. That's a pretty safe pick, right? So they'll be the number 1.
Going out on a limb there. I don't know.
So they'll be the number 1 overall seed out of the north. So they will host whoever the lowest remaining seed is out of the south, whether that be, if Cretin-Durham Hall by some miracle upsets Chanhassen, then Cretin-Durham Hall would play Elk River because they'd be the 4th seed out of the south.
What's the best case for Cretin-Durham Hall to play round 1? Is it going to be Chanhassen basically, like, no matter what? Or
if the Raiders somehow go undefeated and make a case that they're a 2 or a 3 seed, they're going to face any of those teams. It's either going to be Chanhassen, St. Thomas Academy, or Rochester Mayo. So you're going to have to go through one of those teams to get to the second round.
Gotcha.
And then same with Elk River. If you don't earn the 1 seed and you don't get Bloomington Jefferson or Minneapolis Washburn, whichever one that you and I picked, then you're looking at either Robbinsdale Armstrong or Alexandria in the state quarters. And I'm sure the Elks have a preference there of Bloomington Jefferson.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
But no, if you wanted to make hypothetical picks of those, then we can say who's left and you can kind of go from there.
Interesting. Yeah. I haven't thought about that too much. It's going to be fun to, like, when it's not speculation, when, like, we get to see it. And do coaches vote on 5A teams or is it decided by record and stuff like that?
So there is coaching discussion and voting. I think we might have touched on this in one of the podcasts when we brought up Duluth East. So the coaches in Section 7, even though Duluth East was 2-6, and then Cambridge-Isanti was 0-8, Cambridge-Isanti got the 4th seed, and Duluth East got the seed below them because Duluth East's 2 wins were against 3A teams. And the coaches kind of all voted on that. And then the other big thing that comes into play is the QRF, the quality results formula. This might be the most like unknown thing in Minnesota high school football. We're getting deep in the iceberg. Basically, it's just some calculation the state high school league uses that like takes into account how many points you beat an opponent by, with the quality of your opponent, what's the strength of schedule, what's your strength of schedule. It just takes a whole bunch of variables into account and then spits out a number that tells you how good your team is. Like last year, I'll just throw some 6A numbers at you. Coon Rapids had a QRF of like 34 or something, and Maple Grove was like 184. So
it wasn't negative.
No, there's no negative QRF. And you know what? Coon Rapids did not have the lowest QRF in 6A last year. They were like a point or two ahead of Burnsville. So, but then again, that just takes the quality of opponent into calculation. It doesn't really make a difference in 6A, but for a lot of these like lower class teams, especially when you have, like we said, we saw a whole bunch of 5A teams having to play 4A teams. Duluth East plays a bunch of 4A teams, a 3A team, and a 5A team. How do you stack them up when they don't play any other teams in their playoff section? Well, then you go by coach voting and by those QRFs. The only like fact about the QRF that coaches know is that once you have a 35-point lead against an opponent, the QRF or the quality of that win doesn't go up anymore. So that's kind of your threshold. You want to beat teams by at least 35 points. Boost your stats.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, the state title stuff is interesting to think about as well, and just what team's path, because I can say that a team is a dark horse to win state, but then depending on the path, it makes that a lot tougher when you actually like draw it out and actually do it. So interesting stuff, and I'm sure we'll get to that stuff when it comes, but right now it's just previewing what we can and basically speculation on where we think all these teams are going to be. Any more final thoughts?
I'm all for the Chanhassen Elk River rivalry. Let's make it happen. Bring on that game as the state title for 2025 5A. I'm here for it.
Yeah, that would be a fun one on paper, most definitely. And I think, only time will tell. I think the expectations are very high for those two teams going into this season. So, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe we'll see a surprise dark horse, one of the teams we talked about, completely proving us wrong and going to win the state title for 5A. That's what makes the football season fun. Is it's really hard to predict stuff, and
yeah,
we try our best to highlight whatever we can and to give public knowledge and whatever we know. But at the end of the day, it's football, right? And football can be unpredictable at times, and that's why that's why me, and that's why everybody watching the video loves it. So, yeah. With that being said, the 5A state title games or the 5A state preview of all 43 teams has been officially complete. There has been people asking me for 4 and below. I've gotten too busy to even think about doing those. So although I want to, I think next season, I think it's a good aiming point to have for next season to be done. But I just know that I have to start like a lot sooner into the summer, to where now I'm so busy where I'm trying to come up with rankings, trying to do interviews, trying to do get stuff ready for the season that I can't, although it's something that I want to do. So hopefully next season I'll be able to provide the 4A and below classes with at least some sort, maybe if it's not all of them, maybe if it's a top 25 for each class, which I know I'm going to be posting at some point before the season. Kind of like the whole college football top 25. I felt like it's something to, because if I do power rankings of every team, I feel insulting putting some teams at the bottom. Like, no matter who the 32nd team is, it kind of feels insulting putting them at 32nd. and that's closest to 6A because there's 32 teams in 6A. So based on the way I do it, there'll be 7 teams left off each week for 6A, and then as you go to more classes, there's going to be more teams left off the list if I'm just doing top 25s for each class. So that's the plan, and hopefully next year we'll be able to cover a little bit more. But with that being said, he's Coach Lance. I'm Caleb Costa. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video. I think that's the first time I've said it on this channel, but it does mean a lot, and I probably should have said it at the start, but oh well. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next time.